Hello, my dear student. How are you doing? Good? Fantastic. Did you have a good day? I hope so. And if the day hasn't ended, I hope your day is going well. What's my name? Profi Kyle. Exactly. And in today's Simple English video, I want to talk about my least favorite city, or one of my least favorite cities in the world. I don't like to say the most or the least because sometimes things change. And who knows? I haven't seen many cities in the world. I'm pretty sure if I went to New Delhi or, I don't know, Lahore or something like that, they might become my new least favorite cities. And I've heard, for example, that Hanoi, Vietnam is even noisier than cities in Latin America. So, I don't like noise. Something that you should know, I don't like noise. So basically any city that's very noisy, I don't like. Which is maybe why I'm not a huge fan of Canadian cities, but one thing I love about cities in my country is that they are quite quiet at the moment. I think things will change because of what's currently going on here, but traditionally we have very quiet cities. Now, my least favorite city. Are you ready for me to reveal what it is? Well, if you saw the thumbnail, if you saw the title, you probably already know what it is. Before I do that, remember, turn on the subtitles. Subtitles will help you learn English quicker. Anybody who says subtitles aren't helpful, they are full of shit, as we say in English. And this video is more for intermediate learners. If you're a beginner, I'm surprised you're still listening to me. That's good. You're training your ear, but probably this video isn't appropriate for you. So you can leave right now if you want. Now, let's get started. You've probably found out from watching my other videos that I spend a lot of time in Latin America, and especially in the country of Colombia. Now, I love Colombians, and it's kind of strange because people often think that I hate Colombia, and there are definitely things I don't like about Colombia, and I would like them to change, and I also think most Colombians would like those things to change. So sometimes Colombians will get angry, and I think, you mean you don't want your country to become safer? You mean you don't want your cities to have nice paved roads? You mean you don't want functioning public transportation? And normally that shuts them up. So for whatever reason, even I don't know, Colombia is my favorite country in Latin America. I feel comfortable there. I don't know why I feel comfortable in Colombia, but I do. But there's one city in Colombia that I never want to go back to, and that city is Cartagena. And this is very surprising for people, especially for people in Colombia, because if you don't know, Cartagena is, I think it's like the 5th biggest city in Colombia, and it's maybe the most touristic city in Colombia. Many people, Colombian, Latin American, and even North American, Canadian American, will go to Cartagena, even European, they'll go to Cartagena for vacation. It's an incredibly popular tourist destination. And it's popular because, one, it has nice beaches, not in the city, it has nice beaches outside of the city, and because of its famous colonial walled city, which is, I admit, one of the nicest colonial walled cities in Latin America and maybe even the world. So if you've seen pictures of a beautiful Spanish colonial walled city, it's more than likely that the picture is of Cartagena. And people love taking photos in Cartagena. People love getting married in Cartagena because of the beautiful Spanish colonial architecture in the colonial walled city. And me being a big fan of traditional classical architecture, I did enjoy seeing the architecture in the Spanish colonial walled city. So you're probably wondering, Cartagena seems like paradise. Why don't you like it? Well, let me tell you. So I spent 1 year, I think it was about 11 months. So I think I was 1 month shy of living in Cartagena for 1 a year. So I spent almost a year in Cartagena and I learned a lot. So when I lived there, I was 25 years old, it was 2015. And in Canada, there's a lot of people that say, oh, Canada is a horrible place. It's so cold. Oh, it must be like living in heaven if you live in the Caribbean. And that's how I thought too. I really didn't appreciate all the incredible things in my own country. And I believe that living in the Caribbean, living by a beach, was the pinnacle of living good. Cartagena taught me that that is not true. So let me go through some of the reasons why Cartagena is probably my least favorite city until now. But again, before I start, positives, because if there are some costeños, people that live on the Caribbean coast of Colombia, or Colombians, or people from Cartagena, they're probably going to be offended by some of the things that I say, and I don't want that. Of course, if somebody's offended, they're offended. There's nothing I can do about that. But good things about Cartagena. The people from Cartagena who are not involved in the tourist industry, who are not involved in prostitution, just regular people, I think they're awesome people. They are incredibly happy, incredibly talkative, conversational. Of course, the Spanish in Cartagena is very difficult to understand. At the same time, I'm very appreciative of the people from Cartagena for always asking me lots of questions in Spanish and helping me practice my Spanish, because a lot of my conversational Spanish that I'm able to speak is because of all the practice I got in Cartagena in 2015. And of course, I just talked about it, but yeah, the walled city is beautiful. And even Getsemani. Getsemani isn't the walled city, it's outside of the walled city, but even Getsemani is very beautiful. So those are two beautiful neighborhoods, beautiful because of their architecture. Now, the reasons why I wasn't a big fan of Cartagena. The biggest reason, and this cannot be changed. This is something that people from Cartagena cannot change at all. The only way they can change it is if they find a way to make the Chinese and the Indians emit more greenhouse gases, and somehow this causes a chain reaction, which causes a new global ice age, which drops the temperature everywhere, and the temperature in Cartagena on average becomes between 20 degrees Celsius and 27 degrees Celsius, then yes, possibly they could change it. But more than likely that's not going to happen. Cartagena is way too humid and way too hot. I'm Canadian. I didn't realize this before going to Cartagena, but I realized that humidity and heat are not good for somebody like me. I am of Swedish ancestry. I prefer cooler temperatures. I prefer no humidity. And in Cartagena, as soon as you walk outside, you start to sweat. I've never sweat so much in my life than in Cartagena. It is incredible how much you can sweat just walking around, not even exercising. And if you exercise, even worse. I went to a gym in Cartagena to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and to work out, and they had no air conditioning. And you wouldn't imagine how much sweat came out of my body. It was gross. And even at home, I rented a room in a 3-bedroom apartment. It wasn't a huge apartment. It was 3 bedrooms, but it wasn't huge. The only room that had air conditioning was the room of the owner of the apartment. But besides that, there was no air conditioning. Now, my rent wasn't that expensive. I think I wasn't paying that much. I think it was 300,000 pesos at the time. So probably was about, I think like $100, like $100 per month, which was, yeah, nothing. I was actually saving a lot of money in Cartagena. It's surprising. People would think that you spend a lot of money, but no, I was saving a lot of money in Cartagena because I was only paying about $100 US dollars per month on rent. Incredibly cheap. But there was no air conditioning. So even just working, if I did not have a fan blowing on me directly, it didn't matter what time of the day, I was sweating. Even at night when I was sleeping. And at night, the coldest part of the day, I needed a fan blowing on me constantly, because if I didn't have the fan, I was gonna sleep in my own sweat, which again, for me is gross. For people from the Caribbean, Santo Domingo, from San Juan, from Maracaibo, Panama, yeah, it's not a big deal sleeping in sweat. But for me, sleeping in sweat is one of the grossest things in the world. So yes, Cartagena, way too hot, way too humid. So even if Cartagena changes the next few things I'm going to talk about, I still wouldn't go back. I might say it's a good city, but I wouldn't say that it's my ideal city, because it's so hot and so humid. All right, now let's go into things that make Cartagena not a great place. One, noise. I would say in general, it's not really controversial, but compared to people from Canada and the United States, Latin Americans are noisy people. It's a very noisy culture. But the champions of noise in the Latin American world are the Caribbeans. Whether they're Dominicans, whether they are Cubans, whether they're Puerto Ricans, whether they're Venezuelan Caribbeans, or Colombian Caribbeans, or Central American Caribbeans. They love noise. I don't know what it is about noise, but they love noise. Some Caribbeans will even tell you that if they don't have noise, they can't sleep, which for me is crazy. I need silence to sleep, but for many of them, they need noise to sleep. And Cartagena is a noisy city. Only in the really rich neighborhoods is there some silence. But even there, it can be quite noisy. If you get a rich person from Medellin or Bogota on vacation, paying for prostitutes and cocaine and having a big party in their apartment, of course it's going to get noisy. Basically, wherever you go, you're going to hear people yelling, you're going to hear people selling. I remember, this is common in many parts of Latin America, but in my apartment complex, it was pretty isolated. It was pretty quiet, but in the mornings, there'd be somebody selling bananas at like 7 in the morning. Just a guy yelling, "Bananas! Bananas! $1! Bananas!" Just yelling his eyes out, bananas. So you'd wake up to people yelling. And then, for example, on the weekend, it's Saturday night, and I'm living in an apartment complex. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but instead of people going out to a club to listen to music and to dance, there'd be people who would take their speaker outside to their balcony or to the main public area of the apartment complex. And this was a huge apartment complex. There were probably, I'm going to say between 500 and 1,000 people living in this apartment complex. So it's basically like 8-10 apartment buildings surrounding a square with a pool in the middle. And on the weekends, just somebody thought it was a good idea to take out their speaker and to just blast the local music as loud as possible. So if you are a normal person and you just want to have a relaxing Saturday night, you decide not to go out and you just want to sleep at a normal time, at 11 p.m., it's not going to happen because of the noise. So people in Cartagena love noise. It doesn't matter what kind of noise, honking the horn, yelling, music, they love noise. And for me, noise is torture. If somebody wanted to torture me, the easiest way to torture me, to get information from me, is just to blast noise constantly. And yeah, I'll give you whatever you want. Just make the noise stop, right? So noise. Next, chaos. The city is so chaotic. The thing is, most people, when they go to Cartagena, they go to the colonial walled city, and they just go there and they say, oh, it's the most beautiful city in Colombia. But they never go to the real city. Maybe 1,000 people live in the walled city. The other 999,000 people that live in Cartagena, they live in the real city. And the real city is chaotic. The infrastructure is horrible. The public transportation is a mess. There are no proper bus stops. I think it's changed a little bit, but when I was there, no proper bus stops. People just getting on the bus whenever they wanted, getting off the bus whenever they wanted. People just stopping their cars in the middle of the road just because there were still people with donkeys and carts transporting construction materials. It was crazy how chaotic it was. And if you look at a map of Cartagena, you'll see just, it doesn't make any sense. The roads just go everywhere. It's basically just two main roads which make an X through the city. And besides that, just roads kind of like that. So it's pure chaos. I would describe Cartagena as pure chaos. And even in some neighborhoods, if you go there, you really feel like you're in Africa. Just because it's so chaotic. It's crazy how chaotic it is. So that's the chaos. Then of course there's the insecurity. It's Colombia, and Colombia is one of the most unsafe countries in the world, and especially in Latin America, even though Latin America in general is a very unsafe place. So luckily, and I've been robbed many times, you can watch those videos here. Luckily I was never robbed in Cartagena, but I've heard many stories from both local people from Cartagena and tourists getting robbed. Whether it's at knife point, whether it's on a bus, whether it's while they're walking, or maybe they're just a tourist in downtown Cartagena and all of a sudden they have some robber chasing them with a knife through the streets. I don't think Cartagena is the most unsafe city in Colombia, but it's definitely not one of the safest cities in Colombia. It is quite unsafe in Cartagena. And of course, there were many rumors. I remember one of my students saying that there were men waiting outside a shopping mall to kidnap girls and rape them. I heard that story and thought, even for me, that seems a little bit crazy, but at the same time, crazy things happen in Colombia, so I wouldn't doubt it either if that was happening. So, quite unsafe in Cartagena. I would not describe it as a safe place to live. Next, I would say the tourist workers. What's incredible about Cartagena is that it's the most touristic city in Colombia. At the same time, it seems like nobody has learned how to properly run a tourist economy. Let me explain. They are constantly trying to rip you off. Constantly. And they're constantly bothering you. When you picture vacation, you don't picture somebody constantly bothering you, constantly yelling at you, constantly trying to make you buy something. And then when you want to buy something, they want to charge you exorbitant prices on that thing, whether it's food or a souvenir or just an excursion. They're going to charge you double, triple, maybe even 10 times what the price should be, because they don't think about, if I want this tourist economy to be sustainable, I need to make sure that the tourists have a good time, that they feel like they're being fairly treated, and that they feel relaxed. As a tourist in Cartagena, you never feel relaxed. You always feel under pressure. You're constantly being bothered, and they're constantly trying to rip you off. And it was bad in 2015, but from what I've heard, it's gone even worse since then. And now Cartagena is suffering because people no longer want to go to the city because they have no idea how to run a tourist economy. They have no idea how to treat tourists. Now, I'm not a big fan of being dependent on tourists to make money, but at the same time, it exists. And it's pretty easy to learn from other tourist cities and tourist towns in the world how to best run a tourist economy. And for whatever reason, it seems like the local government, the Colombian government, and just locals in general, they don't want to take any time into figuring out how to best treat tourists so that they keep on coming back. Because I would say, of all the tourists that go to Cartagena, maybe 1% would say, I really want to go back to Cartagena because it was such a wonderful experience. Some examples. I go to the beach in Cartagena. I want to go to the beach to relax. I want to listen to the ocean. What happens? You go to the beach, you got to pay for a chair, a little canopy. Not a big deal. That's not a big deal. But you sit down. And if you're paying for a chair and an umbrella, you're paying for this area, you expect the person running this area to protect you, to give you that silence, to give you that privacy. But no, they let anybody come up to you to sell you oysters. And they try to sell you oysters. And you say no. And they say, no, I have a deal, 2 for 1. No, I don't want any oysters. Oh, you're a very handsome man. Oysters, they give you lots of strength in bed. The ladies will love it. Buy some oysters. No, I don't want any oysters. Come on, man, they're fresh. What's wrong with you? Buy some oysters. I don't want any oysters. Finally, they go away. You try to relax. What happens next? An obese lady, who smells like she hasn't showered in a week, comes up to you and she says that she wants to give you a massage. And you say, no, I don't want a massage. And she says, it'll be a fantastic massage. And you say, no, I don't want a massage. And she says, you are so handsome. You're so beautiful. The ladies must love you. Like, no, I don't want a massage. What's wrong with you? Why don't you want a massage? I don't want a massage. Why are you still here? Leave me alone. And finally, they leave you alone. But then somebody else comes. They're selling jewelry and you go through the same process. So in an hour at the beach in Cartagena, you're going to be accosted by 5, 6, 10 different people trying to sell you something that you do not want. So just the tourism workers, the people involved in the tourism industry are just horrible. They're just horrible people. They're evil people. I'm trying to be soft with everything I say, but I have no problem saying that the tourist workers, the people involved in the tourist industry in Cartagena are horrible, evil people. I would say that Dante could create a new level of hell by putting the tourist workers of Cartagena in it. That'd be hell, just dealing with them. So I do not like the tourist industry in Cartagena. It's definitely made the city worse for everybody. Tourists, Colombians, and even locals. It's not fun at all. And as for the beaches in the city aren't very nice. They aren't nice beaches. You might think, oh, a beach city, so beautiful, must be paradise to live in Cartagena. No, the beaches in the city aren't nice. The sand isn't nice. The water isn't nice. The beaches outside the city, yes, are nicer. But even there, everybody goes there. And the beaches are like this. So again, you don't get any peace and quiet. And again, Colombians, when they go to the beach, they don't want silence. They want music. They want loud conversation. So even if you go to a nice beach outside of Cartagena, you're not going to get any peace and quiet. So yes, the tourism in Cartagena is horrible. And Cartagena is famous for its sexual tourism as well. So if you don't know, and you're a man, and you go to Cartagena, especially at night, you're going to be walking around the walled city or even Getsemani, and you're going to be noticing girls by themselves. And they can often be very beautiful, pretty girls. But you'll see them by themselves, which is kind of strange in Colombia. Or you see two girls together. And again, not very normal in Colombia that girls are going to go out by themselves. They're not really safe enough to do that. And sometimes you might even see 3 girls, which again, just not normal in Colombia. And you start walking, you walk by a few, and they start saying start giving you the eyes, and they start saying things to you like, "Ooh, papi," trying to get your attention. And you realize that these girls are prostitutes. So I remember being in Cartagena and going to downtown Cartagena, the walled city, trying to find a good nightclub to go dance with normal girls from the city, or tourist girls, whatever. And I would just constantly be getting whistled at, called at by prostitutes. And if you like prostitutes, then Cartagena is paradise because there are lots of prostitutes in Cartagena. But if you prefer regular women, you want to just talk to regular girls, it's very difficult in Cartagena. Which brings me to my last point, is the nightlife for me really isn't that good. And now I had to learn this the hard way, because a stereotype about Latin Americans is that they love to dance, love to party, which isn't false. That is true. But you imagine, if that's true, that in Latin America they must have the best nightclubs in the world, which is not true, unfortunately. Why? Well, in most of Latin America, nightclubs aren't really designed for bringing people together, bringing strangers together to mingle, to dance, and maybe meet somebody new. They're more designed for groups of people. So you go to a nightclub and in the middle of the dance floor, tables. Not big tables, but tables. And basically you go to a nightclub, you get a table, you get a bottle of alcohol, and you're stuck. You're stuck with your group. It's not really normal for groups to interact with each other. So basically, if you're a single man, or two single guys, or three single guys, whatever, and you go to a nightclub, wherever in Latin America, the chances of you meeting other people, especially women, is very slim, because most Latinos, when they go out at night, they go out to be with friends, right? It's completely different. So if you're Latino, I understand this is the way it is. So in Cartagena, of course, same thing. And you think they would say to themselves, I'm getting tourists from Europe and North America. How are the nightclubs in North America and Europe? Oh, open dance floor. Less tables. More interaction with strangers. I should make a nightclub like that. No. I was in Cartagena, I would go downtown almost every weekend. Try to find something going on. Try to find a place where people were dancing. And there were places like Getsemani. There was a nice square where tourists and locals would go. But I would say most of the people there were backpackers, hippies, and hipsters, which not really my crowd. I really don't want to meet backpacking girls, hipster girls, or hippie girls. Just not the people I want to meet. I want to meet more regular people, people that have a job, people who know how to dance, like to dance, who are just connected with reality. I never really found a place like that. And people often say that I'm lying, that I didn't look hard enough, but I would go downtown and trying to see just regular people going to a regular nightclub. And no, every nightclub that I went to would have the tables, the groups of people, and I really never found a place where I could go to dance champeta or vallenato or merengue, dances that Caribbeans love to dance. I never really found a place to do that in Cartagena, so I was really extremely disappointed with the nightlife. It wasn't like what you see in the movies in Havana before Castro, and people drinking, having fun and dancing. No, it wasn't like that at all. I was extremely disappointed with that. And yeah, those are the reasons why Cartagena is, until now, one of my least favorite cities in the world. Now, a lot of these things can be changed. Noise can definitely be improved. The chaos can definitely improve. Insecurity can improve. Prostitution can be dealt with much better. And better nightclubs can be made for tourists. The tourism industry can definitely improve by leaps and bounds by educating people on how to treat tourists. All of this can be done if the local government in Cartagena and the people decide to do something. But until now, I haven't seen it. Even right now, from what I know, Cartagena is suffering because there are less and less tourists. I don't see anybody in Cartagena saying, maybe we should change something. Maybe we should make a change to improve the city, not just for the tourists, but for everybody. I don't see that. So of course, if these things change, I think Cartagena could definitely be an amazing city. It would still be too humid and too hot for me to live there. But for other people who like the sea, who like heat, who like humidity, who like to dance, who like the Caribbean laid-back lifestyle, I think Cartagena could be an amazing city once again in the future. But right now, I don't like it. I don't want to go back. And I feel bad for anybody who doesn't see a video like this and goes there expecting it to be paradise, because it's definitely not. If you're from Cartagena and you agree with something or you disagree with something, let me know down below. If you're Colombian and you agree or disagree with something, let me know down below. If you're not from Colombia and you've heard about Cartagena, tell me, what do you know about Cartagena down below in the comments. And that's it for now for this simple English video. Hopefully you learned some new vocabulary. If you didn't understand some vocabulary, ask away in the comments what you want to understand, what you didn't understand. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next simple English video, my dear, dear student.